لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد ومن المحبين عترة الطاهرين لعنة الدائمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين على أعدائهم أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان صلوات. Mu'minin, pray that the sound box lasts through the lecture and the few lectures. Hopefully it will. Pray for me. So if I seem a little hoarse, it's not because I'm tired, but the sound is a little tired. So Allah will help us to go through this. So the subject that we have been going through, and these are the subjects that we have covered, that we began with the intention, we looked at how to think correctly, and we how do we use time correctly, and what is the value proposition of a human being. And then we moved on to two very important subjects. Number 5 was really the theme of this entire series of talks, to say how do we live a purposeful life. Then we looked at life as a journey, Islam is a vehicle. Today we're looking at the concept of the society of believers. In the next couple of days I will try and conclude the entire series to give us a perspective of where we should be. So the ayah that I began with, I have recited that ayah before, and that truly is a mission statement of a human being and also a collection of human beings, which is a society, that help support one another in bir and in taqwa, and not in ism and udwan. And truly, the idea is to support each other in piety and in righteousness, and not in sin and in aggression. And that really forms the basis of a society of believers. And this Quranic ayah is very, very pertinent here. Indeed, the Blessed Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives us a beautiful simile. Let's just ponder over those words of the beloved Prophet. He says, and I quote, that in their mutual love, compassion and sympathy for one another. So we're talking about compassion and sympathy here as keywords. Believers are like a body. When one part of it suffers a complaint, all other parts join in, sharing in the sleeplessness and in fever. Such a beautiful simile. The body, the human body, is a miracle. If you think about the immune system within a human being, and if you look at some of the graphic presentations of the different pieces of the immune system coming together, the soldiers of the immune system, it itself is a miracle and a marvel. The human body, which Imam Ali alayhi salam calls a universe within you, is something to contemplate on. We talked about the heart yesterday. Qalb Salim is one of the organs. When one organ begins to fail, the other organs within the body start taking over some of the functions. If the kidneys are weak, or one of the kidneys is weak, the other kidney takes over. If both the kidneys have an issue, then the pancreas and the other organs will work a little harder to try and maintain what we call the homeostasis, the equilibrium within the human body, so that most of the bodily functions continue to work unimpeded. When a number of organs start failing, it is then that we can see the manifestation of a disease. Sometimes we do not see it because the other organs are sharing in the load. In the same way, the Blessed Prophet talks about that when one human being within a society is suffering, then our empathy must be, as part of a society, to feel the pain of the other. In the society that we live in, the Facebook and the social media society, we have so many friends on Facebook, but when it comes to relations which are real, which are in real life, they are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. If we have those relationships which are now being eroded, where friends don't have time to speak to each other, at least before the days of the text and WhatsApp, we could at least hear the voice of people. Now it's 3 words. And now it's not even words. You know, we've gone back to the cavemen, because now we have these emojis or whatever you call them that go through, and now you'd actually talk in symbols. And it was the cavemen who used to talk in symbols. And we've come back full circle in terms of how we connect with each other as human beings. We need to be really careful to see that we follow this simile, that the first thing that the believers, as the Blessed Prophet says, must act like one body. That we are all together. And if one of us is pained, then all of us are pained. And this goes in concentric circles, Mu'mineen. The first, it begins with the home, the family, and then your village or your town, your locality, your country, and the entire universe. Because humankind has been created and we are one big society. We cannot be living in cocoons. People talk about globalization. And they're afraid of globalization. Yes, there are certain elements, and I'm not an economist, and I don't dare go there, but there are certain elements which may be taking advantage. But we're already living in a very globalized society today. I wake up in the morning, and I brew some Kenya coffee in a Malaysian-made machine, go to work in a German car, sit on a furniture which is made in Korea somewhere, and open up a computer which has been made in China, and so on and so forth. We are already a very globalized society that we live in. This society, in concentric circles, needs to be where we feel the pain of each other. Because as human beings, we are not an accidental society. We look at cooperation, not just mere coexistence. I gave an example before. People traveling on a plane do not make inquiries about the moral character of other passengers or their motive for the journey. We are there as an accidental society, come together, and spend 6 hours, 8 hours. I just spent 14 hours on a single flight coming back from Madagascar. So I was sitting next to somebody and there was some small talk. When the flight was over, we went our own ways. That's an accidental society, just we came together. But when it comes to an intentional society where members come together with a common vision, as we have here, we have a common vision of commemorating the Shahadat of Abu Abdullah. We have a common vision of practicing our faith. We have a common vision to come here and say our prayers together. The recommendation of Jama'ah prayers is all telling us that we are part of something which is much bigger than ourselves. And this is the society of believers. So when we are in an intentional society, the individuals responsible for the common welfare and prosperity of their society have to take a leading role. It is my duty to do the utmost for the society that I live in and contribute to the society so that I am amongst the givers in a society, not just a mere taker. Life is give and take. We all give and take. But the point is, wherever you have a society where the demand for services is more and the provision of the services is less, then those societies have stress, they have tension, and the societies do not progress as fast as those societies where the people who want to give are in abundance and the people who want to take are few. Then there is aman and there is peace in a society. Above all, an intentional society must be a God-centric community. A God-centric society where everything that one does, and we talked about this yesterday and in the days before, that one must be, as an individual, a God-centric person. The entire existence is indebted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity and the blessings, and therefore we must continue to thank Him and be God-centric. And therefore, if every individual in a society is God-centric, then the society becomes God-centric. If the entire society veers away from it, then we see that the society is not a God-centric society, and we have seen many examples in front of our eyes. Secular societies have so many issues in terms of depression and the rates of suicide, and so, despite all the wealth, particularly here in North America, with all the abundance of everything that we have, the issues of psychological illnesses is on the increase. I am not going to analyze this in this lecture, but you can think for yourselves and compare it with a society which has God in the center, which has Allah in the center. A few years ago, I was fortunate enough to be at Harvard University, listening to a professor who had come from Kashmir. And his whole thesis was that when a calamity strikes an area, people who have a God-centric life recover from it much faster than people who live in a secular society where it is not God-centric. And he had done an experiment and he had done a research for several years comparing the major earthquake in Kashmir, in the Azad Kashmir area, and Katrina. And he said that the number of years or the number of months it took the people of Azad Kashmir to come back to normal life was much shorter than that we had at Katrina in Louisiana. And one of the reasons that he was presenting was that when Allah is removed from the economics, when Allah is removed, that faith is removed from a society, then that society does not have a hook to go on to. So this is what I mean by a God-centric society where you have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that in plenty and in calamity, I will have somebody who is going to save me. I have some hope that I have posited, and that allows me to recover much faster from a calamity. So that is a responsibility that we have. At the same time, while an individual is responsible, has to contribute as a contributing member of the society, the society as a whole also has a responsibility for the welfare of the individuals in that society. So it's a two-way street. It's not total capitalism that every person for themselves. If I have the dollar, I'm the king, and everybody else can go to wherever they want to go to, I have no responsibility. Nor is there the shades of pink and red, which is almost disappeared from Russia and China, of socialism and communism, where society is responsible for everything. I as an individual have no responsibility. Islam teaches us, because this is Ummat-e Wasata, it is a nation most balanced, that there needs to be a balance, just as an individual has responsibilities towards a society, society also has a responsibility for the human being or the individual. So duties and rights actually correspond harmoniously. And that truly is a meaning, when we look at it, of Amr bil Maruf and Nahy anil Munkar in a society. And the Blessed Prophet gives a beautiful example, that if you have an individual in a society who is harming society, then society has a responsibility to ensure that he does not harm the rest of us. And this is where the idea of Sharia, the idea of rules and regulations in a society come in. The Blessed Prophet gives this example to say that a man sits in a boat and starts digging a hole in that boat. And he claims, well, I paid for this seat. It's mine. This area is mine. So I'm going to dig a hole. I'll do whatever I want in a society. Well, if he continues to dig the hole, everybody sinks. And therefore it becomes the responsibility of the other people in that very boat to make sure they stop this man digging a hole in the boat to save everybody else. So these are the correspondence, rights and responsibilities of people who live in a society. I recited this particular couplet by Allama Iqbal to say, Fard कायम रब्ते मिल्लत से है, तन्हा कुछ ही नहीं, मौज दरिया में है, और बीरून दरिया कुछ भी नहीं. The translation is there that the individual being connected to society has an existence, is firm. Without being attached to a society, he is nothing, because just as individuals make up the waves in a society, a single drop can do nothing. But you know, if we did not have drops, there would be no ocean. So it is both. The responsibility is reciprocal, that in order to create waves, you need a drop. But a drop on its own cannot create a wave, and therefore a human being needs a community. Even some of the species of the animals live in societies. It's not just a human being. But more than most, as a thinker, as an intellectual, somebody who has been given the quwa of akaliya, the power of intellect and other powers, we need a community. All of us need a community. Aristotle said this best. He said a person that has no need for any community must either be a god or a beast. Even beasts now, we find, maybe in Aristotle's time, they did not realize that even whales have a society, ostriches have a society, and different species have their own societies. Therefore, we need a society. The distinctive feature of a Muslim community is the worldview of Tawheed. And I come back to the central point that our societies must be God-centric, and our worldview needs to be one of Tawheed. Salawat. That unity of purpose can only come when we are all rowing in the same direction. When you have a worldview of Tawheed, which says that there is only one God and there is none but Allah, and we have said La ilaha illallah, and we have seen how liberating the message of La ilaha illallah is. Therefore, we are all rowing in the same direction for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sadly, there are other egos that come in, and this is what Allama Iqbal has said about the unity of purpose. For those who understand the Urdu language will like this. I will translate to say manfaat ek hai, is kaum ki nuksan bhi ek hi sabka nabi, deen bhi, iman bhi ek, haram pak bhi, Allah bhi, Quran bhi ek, kuch badi baat hote jo musalman bhi ek. This is the state that there is one common gain and one common loss for all Muslims. One Prophet, one Iman for all, one Kaaba, one Allah, and one Quran for all. Wouldn't it be nice if we as the Ummah were one? The power of the 1.6 billion people. And today, when there is a calamity, when there is an issue, Muslims are the one who suffer the most. We may be in billions, but our number is almost like confetti money, that it has little value when it comes to world power. That a small group of people of no more than 13 or 15 million can control the entire economy, can control the entire media, can control the entire political system through the money and the politics and so on and so forth. And there are 1.6 billion of us who struggle, that we cannot do much for the suffering Muslims, and 75% of the displaced people on this planet happen to be those who have said La ilaha illallah. This is our state. Well, we can think globally, but Mu'mineen, we need to act locally. It's about us. It's about this community here. It's about the wider community in Canada, and as we go into concentric circles. So I crave your attention again, just for a few minutes, because one needs to follow this, as to the stages of the evolution of this community that I'm talking about. That there are 4 stages. The first stage is coming together. The second one is reflection and chaos. The third one is emptying or recalibrating. And the last one is what I talked about yesterday, transformation of a community. And I'll elaborate very quickly. Sometimes we are put in a place and we form an instant community by being extremely pleasant with one another and avoiding all disagreement. I call it a microwave community. We land up somewhere on a shore. Maybe some of us in the early days landed here in Edmonton in minus 30 degrees. There were just a few of us, and there was this instant need to come together as a community. And that happens. It has to happen. We are human beings. But I call this a microwave community. It's form an instant community by being extremely pleasant. And we try and avoid all disagreement. It's almost like, when a young man or a woman, when they're courting until the time of the honeymoon, the period it's all nice, it's very pleasant. It's after that one dares to bring up that I like this and I don't like this. But up to the time of the honeymoon, it's all very nice. This is a microwave instant community. We strive to achieve perfect unity and harmony with one another. And this is a human trait. I'm going through the phases of development, and I think some of us can relate to that. We become like a nascent community, just a budding community coming up. Anything that is perceived as controversial, challenging, must be avoided. We cannot have strife. We cannot have this discussion. It must be parked. We've got something else. We've got something good going. Let's just not go there. The appearance of harmony and oneness must be maintained. And sometimes, after a while, in time to keep this, we move into a state of denial that we don't have any differences. This is the reality. It may be a sad reality, but this is the reality of any community. So, we try and come from uniformity to conformity, rather than asking as a society, as a group, saying, what are our common goals? We actually ask, what do I have to do to belong here? What do I need to do to fit in here? That's the question that I ask. What do I have to do so I can remain part of the group and avoid being excluded? And this is a natural progression of a society as we are developing. Please stay with me. We need to realize that we are not all the same. We don't all think alike. We need to understand that to grow, we must move beyond the pleasantry stage into the deeper wave of intimacy so that we are authentic with each other. We're not just putting up a facade of being good to each other. The idea is to truly become intimate, We need to make sure that we realize our follies and our foibles and our good points and our weaknesses. And we are not all the same. We do have differences. As somebody has said, that we all live under the same sky, but we all have different horizons. And it's how we manage those differences is a key to a progressive society. And those who have mastered the art of disagreement, to disagree without being disagreeable, is an art that needs to be cultivated amongst mu'mineen, amongst any society, even in the corporate world. We exist, we have the same vision, but we may have different means of getting there. And if we are going to get down in the trenches and we don't understand or don't know how to disagree, then we will stunt our progress. By promoting this micro community based upon uniformity of some accepted tradition, and I'm not saying all traditions, some accepted tradition, we tend to stagnate. What happens is that the form of something, doing something, the form of a tradition becomes so central to our belief system that we actually perceive it to be the essence of our spiritual experience. You take the Azadari, for example. The Azadari has gone through many manifestations when it was begun by Bibi Zainab Salamullahi Alaiha in Kufa and in Sham, as to how it has gone through various changes over a period of time. The form of Azadari has changed. The essence of Azad has not changed. And we must be cognizant of the fact. Yesterday, the walk that we did is a classic case as to how we evolve based on the need that we have of how we perform Azan. In Hyderabad or in Lucknow or in Dar es Salaam or other places in Karachi, to have a julus in one way is something that is accepted and that needs to be done. And we do it. But you transplant that idea of a julus in culture which doesn't quite understand the ethos of what we are doing, it may be misinterpreted. And kudos to the organizers here, that they actually saw the wisdom of that and were able to conduct our walk in a very dignified manner, in a manner that befits the society that we have here today, and we were able to convey our message, the same message that would have been conveyed elsewhere. We were able to convey it in a way that actually fitted and was relevant to the time that we live in. This is but a simple example of how our rituals and our traditions, can be looked at, and we are able to, as long as we make sure that the essence of it remains. Conversely, what happens is, if we lose the essence of it, then as I spoke a few days ago, that we had this Jose festival where the Ashura procession turned into, Nauzubillah, a West Indian carnival of singing, dancing and drinking. Because the ritual remained, the essence was not there. The original teachings were not there. So, the focus sometimes is only on the status quo because the form becomes so central. And Maulana Room has a beautiful, beautiful simile. And these examples are so very inspiring that it tells us something without me having to spend half an hour trying to describe it. One small incident can tell the story. Maulana Room says that you have a bottle of perfume. Beautiful bottle of perfume. Well-known oud, maybe. The perfume, the oud inside. And I know what it is. And I admire the bottle. I look at the label. I admire the shape of the bottle. I show it off on my mantelpiece. And Maulana Room says that is a form. Unless you open the bottle and you smell the beautiful scent of oud, you will never realize the true value of what's in that bottle. If we only stick to the form, without realizing what the essence is. It's like playing with that bottle, admiring the bottle, never ever opening to understand and to experience the beauty of the traditions that we have been taught by the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Salawat. And I say this with the greatest of humility, please do not misunderstand me. My peers, and I'm one of them, is a young student who ends up in the United Kingdom in the 60s, right, in the middle of Beatles and flower power and the whole stuff. It was overwhelming at that time. Somehow or other, Allah blessed us and we stuck to, our faith values and so on and so forth. And we try to create centers like this one and many others to ensure that we can perform our ibadat, that we have a link to the community the way that we would do it back home, wherever that was, whether that home was in Tanzania or Uganda or in Pakistan or whatever country that you may come from, Iraq or Iran. We try to recreate the centers modeled on what we used to do back home, wherever that may be. Well, that was evolution. Things don't remain static. There is no status quo. Sometimes what we have is this issue where we, because we want to hold on to certain traditions in certain ways, our children feel, and I've been told this, I talk to young people in many places. Wherever I go, I make it a point to informally speak to many young people. And what they tell me is that these are homesickness centers for your lot. You felt like creating a little bit of Karachi here, or a little bit of Lahore, or a little bit of Dar es Salaam. So you created this center, and you go there and you want to create a little bit of that. When I come, I cannot really relate to this. So I said, these are homesickness centers. The young people tell me that we want wellness centers where things are, cheerful and they're bright. And I don't mean in a physical sense, but they're seeking change. They're asking for some level of change, Momini. Now, there are some communities, some leadership, which, really steps up to the plate. And we have now created centers which also have things like sports centers and where our young can come. We need to move beyond that. Even our content needs to be relevant to the young people. We're going through this transition. The sooner we understand and the sooner we take this on, the better it will be for the evolution of our communities wherever we may be. This is an evolutionary path that we have. Sometimes what happens is, in the phase of development, and I'm talking about the different phases, there is a phase where we struggle with our expectations and preconceived notions. And this notion is that I know the way you should be, I know the way I should be, and I know that this is how the world should be. If I don't understand sometimes as to how the rest of the society is moving, if I don't understand the contemporary challenges that the oncoming generations are going to have or will have, then I am going to lose out if I do not make a change within my own family, if I don't make a change within my institutions. And we need to continue to evolve. And what happens is that in many cases, in order to try and stick to some of these things, then there becomes finger pointing that so-and-so is X and so-and-so is Y, while it's just a matter of different expectations. And what we need to do is understand that we live under the same sky. We may have different horizons, and we need to learn how to live together with each other, with different generations. Please recite a salawat so I can tell you a Mullah Nasruddin story. Mullah Nasruddin has a great scholar visiting his village. So he takes him to a restaurant to have dinner. This is a fish restaurant. And when the waiter brings fish, he brings two fish. There was a slightly larger fish and there was a smaller fish. As soon as the waiter brings a fish, Mullah grabs a bigger fish, puts it on his side, pushes a smaller fish to the guest. So now the guest had an opportunity of a lesson in akhlaqiyat to Mullah. And he gives a long lecture saying how you should respect your guests, and that you should pass this fish to your guest, and so on and so forth. So Mullah said, well, if I had not done anything, what would you have done? He said, of course, I would have given the big fish to you. He said, exactly, that's why I took it. Sometimes, we tend, to go into these traditions. Many a times it's saying, finger pointing to other people, while we ourselves are at a loss to say, what is the reality? Where do we need to go? And what happens is, this is one of the worst things that we can do, whether it's within a generation or within a community. And unfortunately, this happens sometimes without realizing it. Self-righteousness is an ill that has caused so many issues in every society. Considering oneself better than others due to one's own estimation of goodness and impiety. Really, the Quran says in Surah Al-Najm that do not ascribe righteousness to yourself, because Allah alone knows best who truly is the pious. The idea of saying, I am better than him, is this phrase that was said by none other than Mr. Shaitan when he refused to prostrate, and he said, Kala ana khairum minhu. That, I am better than him, meaning I am better than Nabi Adam. This arrogance of saying I am better than XYZ is arrogance per se. If I have that feeling within me, that leads to so many issues within a community. And we have this tendency, it's innate, it's inborn in us, to say, thank God I'm not like so-and-so. We have this attitude. Oh, you look at somebody, I talk about the Abid and the Fasik, you may remember the story, that how the Abid became the Fasik and vice versa. Thank God, I'm not like him or like her. Well, this is an odd disease that makes everyone else sick except the one who has it. Because this is a disease that one has. The Blessed Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I quote, that glad tidings to those more concerned with their own faults than focusing on the faults of others. If we are to recognize our own follies and foibles, as I said earlier, in a society, then we are more honest with each other, and I don't need to look at somebody else, I need to look at myself as to who I am. Because this again ayah of the Holy Quran to say, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ كِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ, that it is not righteousness that you turn your faces towards the east or the west. This particular ayah was revealed to the Blessed Prophet when the Qibla changed, if you know, from Jerusalem to Mecca. Muslims used to pray towards Jerusalem, and the order came to change the Qibla to Mecca. The Blessed Prophet is telling them, I am the Prophet, I am telling you now, pray towards Mecca. There were people who were arguing to say, what about our previous prayers? Are they going to be accepted? And there were all kinds of arguments, and it is for that reason this ayah was revealed to say it is not righteousness that you turn towards the east or the west. It's a long ayah which tells us as to what righteousness is. This is not my subject, but this is called ayah bir, which is telling us not to get entangled into minor issues. Got much bigger issues to solve as a society. So while we need to focus our attention on the main things of our faith, sometimes we have debates, the moon debate, the favorite, the moon debate, or the gelatin debate. I'm not minimizing any of the rules of fiqh, But we cannot make it the end all and the be all of our discussion only on these points. There are much bigger things that we need to do to say what is righteousness and where we go. And therefore, the idea of shedding that baggage is the next stage that we need to come to when a community is developing. That sometimes we have to force ourselves to question and empty ourselves of some preconceived notions and prejudices that we have inborn in us over a period of time. We need to really question them. And therefore, in order for a society to progress, the self must die. Our goal is to become a community of believers unified in the spirit of Tawheed. My way or no way is truly a philosophy of failure. As I said, for a community to live, my ego must die. I have to be part of the community, but it cannot always be my way. I cannot always be right. The only people who are always right are the Masumin. Everyone else is fallible. We are prone to make errors. So we cannot be so arrogant to say it's my way or the highway. That is when you come to the stage of transformation. That having emptied, having reflected upon these notions, then you become unafraid to re-examine your beliefs and practices and really re-examine them in the best positive light. And I'm not advocating a revolution or a change. What I'm saying is, let us look at our practices with the guidance of the scholars, with the guidance of the experts, that if necessary, we need to embrace change. Because I had this ayah yesterday to say, Allah does not change the condition of a people unless they make that change in themselves. By emptying ourselves from our expectations, obstacles, agendas, we actually create space for true listening, healing, and that connection. You know, a sage has said that when you speak, you only reiterate what you know. When you listen, you learn something. It has to be that we are out there by way of active listening to look at the rest of the society. I'll just go through this very quickly. I know that the time is flying. We can learn a lot from the geese when we are trying to run organizations and live in a society. Some of you may have seen this lessons from the geese. It's angels' work to say by flying in a V formation, when the geese are flying, you know, when the geese fly in a V formation, what they do is they add 71% greater flying range compared to if the bird flew alone. So by flying together in a formation, they have the sense to know that they'll go 71% greater flying distance. So if we learn that people who share a common direction and a sense of community can progress quicker because they are traveling on the thrust of each other. This is an intentional society. And then staying in. When a goose falls out of line or out of the flock, it feels the drag and resistance of flying alone, quickly learns a lesson and gets back into the fold. Back into the community. So if we had as much sense as a goose, we would stay with the flow, we would stay in formation with those who are headed where we need to go, and we are willing to accept the help and give help to others. Sharing the load. When one goose tires, because you need to have 1 point goose, they're right at the front. When one of them gets tired, another goose flies into formation, takes over, this goose goes back. It makes sense to take turns doing the hard tasks when we are running organizations, when we are running, our corporate world or our jamaats or whatever it may be, that we avoid that burnout for any member by rotating leadership or at least spreading the workload around. They keep honking. In this case, honking is good. Honking is good because we need to make sure that our honking is encouraging. In groups where there is encouragement, the production is much greater. There is much to criticize, and I will vocalize the criticism. How many times do I go and shake the hand of somebody who's working hard here to say, thank you for making sure that the heating was on and the lights were on when I came in? This is the encouragement that we have amongst us as a community, as a society, how many times have you gone to the cashier or the janitor or whoever may be to say, well, thank you, for doing this all over. You make somebody feel good, you actually increase the productivity, and it's much greater and much better for the society. Mutual help. When one goose gets sick, two of them drop out and go and stay with that sick goose until either it dies or it's able to recover and fly back again. The idea of helping each other, that we stand by each other in difficult times as well as when we are strong. And each member is important. Each member knows that they'll be supported when we need it. This is the meaning of the social capital. My young friends, our jamaats that we have created the world over, wherever we may be, this social capital is so very important. Do not negate it. The idea is you now have got to step up to the plate and ensure that you are part and parcel of the community, because it is this social capital. When young people realize the value of our jamaats and the value of our institutions is when there is a death in the home. And then they realize as to where the community stands, because it is this community that you live in which is going to bury your elders and whoever it may be. And that is the time they realize the value and why we have these institutions like Jamaats and Imam Bargas that we have. Yes, we need to move forward, we need to evolve, but we cannot step out. We will not be able to progress. Particularly my young friends, let us stay engaged with our community. If there is something that you would like to see change, be part of the change. Come forward, volunteer, do some work, engage with the elders. They have a lot of experience. And I say this to every community that I go to. Having been blessed with 30 to 35 years of community service, I've seen communities evolve. I've seen what the elders have done and what they had to do to try and bring these centers so that the younger generation is swimming in these waters with great ease, is because what they had done before. And we need to continue to stay engaged. So in order to sustain an ongoing intentional community, we need to have a shared vision and a mission. We need to have shared values and principles, and we need to have organizational systems which match the value of the community. And our value as a Muslim community, our value as the follower of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, is a community which is God-centric and which follows the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Salawat. So let me leave you with this thought. Just one simile. The anatomy of our community, having said all that. The Jamaat or the organization, the Husainiya, whatever you may call it, we tend to use the word Jamaat in our parlance, is a skeleton. It is a framework upon which we can build. And the community members who participate, who are members of that Jamaat, are its flesh. So this is a skeleton, the members are a flesh. The active members within that Jamaat, within that organization, are its nervous system, that they can think ahead and allow different parts of the body to continue towards the general well-being of all its members. And its volunteers that we see in many places are the hands and the feet and the limbs of the community. We're blessed to actually have these, because the biggest need that we felt when we came to these lands was the aza of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. We began with two things. Wherever we have been, when we have been displaced, as a diasporic community around the world, we started with two things. We begin on a Thursday night in someone's home with Dua Kumail, and a few friends gather, the nascent community, and we have Dua Kumail. And then at the time of Muharram, we find a place, somebody's basement, somebody's storage area, whatever it may be, in the initial days, to have the aza of Abu Abdullah so that we have this first shahza which is being spread, and we can sit on this first shahza and we can pay tribute to Sayyid al-Shuhada. These two things, Mu'mineen, have kept us together. This is one community of the Shia Ithnashri around the world which has this power of the Imam Barga, of the Husayniyas, of the Jamaats that we have, which no other Muslim community has. They meet once on a Friday probably. And then there is halakha and all that. The blessing, Mu'mineen, that we have of Abu Abdullah, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and the azab of Hussain has brought us together as a formidable community, that being a small community, being a minority community, we're able to come together as a common vision, and we need to maximize the impact of those values through which we have come together. This is what Muharram is all about. This is our community, and we need to ensure that the generations to come will be able to imbibe those values and continue with these traditions that we have. So, the idea is that when we move with Imam Hussain alayhi salam, let us just not move with Imam Hussain in history. The issue is not to cry much, although crying has its meaning. Instead, the issue is to truly move with him in present, in activism, and in change. This is our Lord, Mu'mineen. And tonight we remember someone whose loyalty to the cause is just unparalleled. Our loyalty to Imam Hussain alayhi salam is coming here for 10 days and more, and on the whole day of Ashura. This is our loyalty to our Imam. The loyalty of Hazrat Abbas is unparalleled. We remember him today. The meaning of the word Abbas is firmness. And Abbas ibn Ali had these wonderful attributes of a fearless nature, which were a result of what he had inherited from his parents. In one of the history books, he is described as, what was he like? You know, we wonder. He said he was a lofty mountain with a momentous heart, because he was a gallant knight and a fearless lion, daring in the face of attacks and the striking of swords of the non-believers in the field. He has many titles. You know, the title of Abul Fazl, the father of virtue. Abu Kirba, literally the father of the water skin with which he went to quench the thirst. He is also called Qamar Banu Hashim, for example, the moon of the Banu Hashim. He is also called, Abdul Saleh, a righteous servant of Allah. Al-Muwasi, we recite this in the ziyarat. Sometimes we need to pay attention to what this man was. Al-Muwasi, which means the one who gives consolation. He was there in Karbala, Mu'mineen. As long as Hazrat Abbas was present, Bibi Zainab had that consolation to say, if Abbas is there, who can come and touch us? This was Al-Hami, which means he was a defender. His name is Al-Waqi, which means he was a protector. His whole name is also Al-Sai, which means the one who strives. And of course he is, as we know him, as Babul Hawaij, which means a doorway to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the needs of people. But above all, what we are referring to today is that he is Hamil al-Liwa, which means the standard bearer. Mu'mineen, a lot rested on the shoulders of somebody who carried the alam. And this is this alam, particularly of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, which stands tall with that palm raised to say that this palm will never go down to any tyrant. This is what the palm is reminding us of. Mu'mineen, this conversation that takes place in Karbala between the two brothers, to say that, Oh Hussein, he says to his brother, oh my brother, my heart has got constricted, and I now must go and need to go into battle. And Imam says, allow me. Imam Tir says, go Abbas, go and fetch some water for these 30 children, because it was at that time that the children were crying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. with the majestic scene that prevails later to say what greatness, what valor, what a spirit of understanding that he has, that the number of men who guarded the river bank were 4,000. Hazrat Abbas descends upon the river bank and leads his horse to the water. First, he fills the water skin that he has brought from Sakina and lays it on his shoulder. Yes, he is thirsty. The air is hot and he's been fighting. But does Abbas even drink a drop of water? No. What he does is, he says this, the rajas that he recites to say, O soul of Abul Fadl, my wish is that you live not after Hussein. Will you have a drink of cold water while there stands Hussein, thirsty near the tents and about to drink the cup of death? Such is not my way of faith, nor that of one who abides in the conviction and in truth. Mu'mineen, what happens later? What happens later is very, very hard to recite, except to say that as Hazrat Abbas is coming back to the tents, his arms are severed from his body. Mu'mineen, just imagine a scenario to say that every warrior who is shot down by an arrow removes it or can remove it from his body with his hands. Abbas faced 4,000 bowmen who had made him his target. Where were those hands for him to pull out those arrows? Mu'mineen, every rider on dismounting from his horse places a hand on the saddle and the other on the bridle. How could a person without any arms actually be able to do that? Mu'mineen, this was the state of Hazrat Abbas, to say every warrior from falling from his mount stretches his arms to the ground to prevent his head and body crashing into the ground. How painfully Abbas must have descended from his mount. Abbas was covered with arrows as he fell from his horse, and at his fall the arrows further penetrated his blessed body. Imam Hussein comes close to the brother. Hazrat Abbas is crying, and Imam says, "Oh brother, why do you cry?" And Abbas replies to say, "Oh brother, oh light of my eyes, how could I not cry when I see you holding my head in your lap, and I know that in a while there'll be no one to lift your head from the ground and place it in its lap and clean the dust from your face." Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Mu'mineen, the Imam sat next to Hazrat Abbas until a hollow sound comes from Abbas's throat as he submitted his life to the Almighty. Imam says, "Oh brother, oh Abbas, oh soul of my heart, oh for the destruction after you, oh Abbas. Now my back has been broken, my means of release have been devastated, and my hopes have been cut short." Imam cried out, "Oh loss, the loss of a brother and the breaking of my back." And then Imam pays tribute to Hazrat Abbas in this world to say, "Oh Abbas, you were for me a secure pillar. Oh luminous moon, you were an aid to me in every misfortune. In straitened circumstances, life for us holds no meaning after you. We will gather tomorrow in the presence of Allah. Truly for Allah is my complaint and perseverance in thirst and in calamity." Mu'mineen, just a few final words to say when the Imam reaches the tents. Bibi Zainab Salamullahi alayha rushed to him, and learning of Abbas's death, she asked the Imam, "Where is my brother? Why did you not bring my brother back to me?" And Imam says, "Oh Zainab, your brother's limbs were torn to such an extent that I could not move him." On hearing this, Bibi Zainab lamented to say, "Oh brother, oh Abbas, oh lack of helpers, oh the destruction after you." And the Imam cried out that, the loss of the brother and the breaking of my bank. And then he recites many lamentations. Mu'mineen, बस कुछ अल्फाज उर्दू में रोने और रुलाने के लिए काफ़ी हैं। आज जिसका मातम किया जाए, हमारे नौजवान, हमारे बच्चे अब्बास का मातम करे। अरे अब्बास का वो अलम हाथों में लेते हैं जो अब्बास के शाने कट जाने के बाद जमीन पर गिर गया था। मगर मैं कहता हूँ, आए पिसरे साथ, आए इब्ने जियाद, اے یزید آ کے دیکھ کہ کتنے ہاتھ ہیں کہ اس علم کو آج اٹھاتے ہیں. بس مومنین وقت مختصر ہے بیان کو آگے بڑھانا، مگر آج علمدار کا ماتم ہے. اے میرے نوجوانوں آج ماتم کرے. میں چاہتا ہوں صرف اتنا بیان کروں کہ جب لشکر کا خاتمہ ہوا حضرت عباس حسین کے سامنے سر جھکا کے آتے ہیں. وہ کہا مولا میں بھی مرنے کی اجازت چاہتا ہوں. کہا عباس تم بھی حسین کو اکیلا چھوڑ دو گے؟ کہا نہیں آقا، اکیلا چھوڑنا نہیں چاہتا، بلکہ آپ کے بعد اکیلا جینا نہیں چاہتا. کہا عباس کیسے اجازت دوں؟ کہا مولا کب تک روکیے گا؟ اسی وقت در خیمے سے سکینہ پکاری الاتش الاتش، ہائے پیاس ہمیں مار ڈالتی ہے. حسین نے مڑ کر عباس سے کہا عباس لڑنے بعد میں جانا، پہلے بھتیجی کے لیے پانی لاؤ. بس مومنین مختصر عباس نکلتے ہیں فرات کے پاس، کہتے دیکھو تو کون ہے، مجھے کون روکتا ہے. فوجوں نے بڑھ کر روکنا چاہا مگر عباس نے نیزے کے ذریعے لشکر الٹ دیے. آخر فرات سے تھوڑا پانی مشکیزہ میں لیا، اس میں پانی بھر کے مشکیزہ اٹھایا. سوچا سینے پر رکھوں، خیال آئے گا جو تیر آئے گا تو مشکیزے پر لگے گا. کہا کاندھے پر رکھ کے اپنی پیٹھ پر لے لوں، تیر میرے سینے پر پڑے مگر مشک سکینہ پہ نہ پڑے. ادھر سے پسرے سعد نے فوجوں کو آواز دی، عباس پانی لے کر جانے نہ پائے. مومنین تیر برسنے لگے، عباس کے ہاتھ کٹے. پلٹ کے ہاتھ کو گرتے ہوئے نہیں دیکھا بلکہ دوسرے ہاتھ میں نیزہ لیا، دوسرے کاندھے پر مشکیزہ لیا، دوسرا ہاتھ بھی کٹا. ارے ہاتھوں کے کٹنے کے بعد عباس نے کاندھے پر سے کھسکتی ہوئی مشک کے تسمے میں دانتوں سے پکڑ کے رانوں سے گوڑوں کو دبایا. اے میرے وفادار پہنچا دے مجھے، ارے اگر مجھے نہ پہنچا تو میرے پانی کو پہنچا دے. ایک تیر آنکھ میں لگا، دوسرا تیر مشکیزے پہ لگا، تیسرا تیر عباس کے کلیجے پر لگا اور ظالم نے گھس مارا. ارے علی کا شیر تیورا کے زمین پر گرا اور جو گرتا ہے وہ ٹیک کر سنبھل جاتا ہے، مگر عباس کے شانے کٹ چکے تھے. میرے شیر منہ کے بل گرا، جنت میں فاطمہ تڑپ گئی. انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون.